All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Noah Sawyer, and this is the Junto. This is episode 49. And I wanted to. It's the morning. Well, actually, it's 12:30. It's the afternoon. But this is the first. This is the earliest I've ever done a show. I wanted to do one last night, but I couldn't, and now I need to go to New York. So this is just kind of sudden, and but I want to do something because I'm going to be away for a few days, so I won't have the opportunity. So I'm going to talk about an experience I had last Sunday, and I'm not going to go into all the details just because I don't know if it would be boring or just too much, but I'm going to try to cut to the chase with an experience that I had. And yeah, I guess I'll just get into it. So the title of this is referring to an essay by hang on. An essay by Debord that I first read when I was 18 called Theory of the Dérive. And it's in this. If you ever see this book, it's worth grabbing. On the poverty of student life is a good essay in here that is still really relevant. This is the Situationist International anthology, and it's translated by Ken Nab. Yeah, so I haven't reread the essay, but just to give you the gist, this relates to the concept of psychogeography. I don't know if that term was coined out of this group of friends that were theorizing it was probably still the 50s at this point that they were doing this in Paris. So there's this loose group of friends and artists and philosophers in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, but really the 60s is their primary decade, and well, where the most significant work came from. And yeah, so their concept of the dérive was essentially and these were people who were really averse to working, really in favor of liberating everyday life in a certain sense, and I agree with that in a certain sense. But this concept of the dérive means drift in French, and so to go on a dérive would be to go on this sort of aimless walk through an urban landscape, especially. So the idea was to be guided by the layout of the city, the geography of the city, the architecture of the city, the urbanism, how everything's laid out. And as they were doing this, I mean, they would just be like getting drunk and walking around, but trying to listen to the city essentially and see what the city was trying to get them to do, where it was trying to get them to go. And that's actually really where the cover image of this book comes from. This is a map that's cut up and is showing which section of presumably Paris you'd be getting sent to. If you were in this part of this one, you get sent over here. If you're in this part of this one, you wind up over here. But it's not totally a clear map. For example, you go this way to get there, but if you're here, you're definitely going to go all the way over here. So it was a playful activity, and some people took it too seriously later. There's a lot of like LARPers who wound up into the Situationists and into what they did, whereas they were just, I feel like they were having fun, and they had a lot of really good ideas. Guy Debord wrote Society of the Spectacle, which I quote on the show all the time, and his other book, Comments on Society of the Spectacle, from 20 years later, which is even more pertinent to read if you only read one. So they were exploring the city, and they were specifically trying to liberate themselves from their own thoughts about their reasons for wanting to go somewhere. So it would be sort of a purposeless journey where you aren't ultimately trying to wind up in a particular place. You're just open to listening and open to winding up wherever in the city you're going to wind up that night. So this is something I was first exposed to when I was 18, and someone told me about the Situationists, and I got this exact copy of this book. It still has my annotations from when I was a teenager, and it is, yeah, so it had a big effect on my life. I really liked some of these writers, and I didn't read this whole book at any point, but some of the essays definitely stuck with me and really informed how I was thinking about my experience of the world. So it's something that, it was a formative intellectual exposure to intellectual history. So with that in mind, that's kind of my background with respect to that concept. I'll just talk about what happened last Sunday in broad strokes. I don't know how much detail to go into because it wound up being a very detail-packed day for me, and it was a very intense day of many experiences. So I guess I'll leave the door open to wow, there's another really weird coincidence with this right now, I'm realizing, because I'm wearing a shirt that is like relevant to the story I'm about to tell. Not this sweater, but the shirt that I'm wearing under it is relevant to the story. So I guess I'll tell the whole thing. Not literally the whole thing, but I'll tell the two major parts of it. So last Sunday morning, I went to church with a family member who was thinking about going back to church a little bit, but we'd never actually done it. So we went and we had good conversations about it, and it was a good experience, and we talked about kind of next steps beyond just going to church and what it means and stuff like that. So that's me and my uncle who watches the show, so hello. And so we go and split up, and he hasn't heard this story actually, so I guess I'll tell it like I'm telling it to him. But we so we split up, and there's a record store that I'd never been in this town, so I didn't even know it was there. So I go in, and we split up. He goes home, and immediately they have a small CD section. I just listen to CDs. I don't have a record player. So I look, and immediately I find Paranoid by Black Sabbath for $5. All the CDs are $5. And I'm like, wow, what a coincidence, because me and Uncle Tom, he took me to my first concert, and it was Black Sabbath. Except they were going by the name Heaven and Hell. This is when I was in 8th grade. But the funny detail that's making me describe this is that I'm actually wearing the shirt that I got from that concert, Heaven and Hell. So that's just surprising. I was not thinking about that at all. Not a conscious decision. So anyway, so I'm like, nice. Okay, cool. And I go to my car, and I don't know what to do for the rest of the day. I've been trying to structure my life. I've been trying to plan certain things. I've been trying to not wind up in these periods of listlessness or, just not knowing what to do. And yet I find myself there again, and I just kind of look through some books that I have in my car, because I always have a lot of books in my car. And I'm like, I need to just not do this. I can't just sit and I don't feel good. I need to do something else. So I just go for a walk. And as I'm walking, I wind up having this feeling that, whenever I go to a new city, I still aimlessly walk around. I don't think of it exactly in the terms of the Dérive like I used to when I was 18, but I'll walk for hours and hours. I'll build up this map of the territory. I'll get familiar, because if I don't let that new place soak in, then I'm just going to be a tourist, essentially. I need it to soak in this way that takes hours over multiple days, ideally. And that's how I like to experience new places. Just go for a walk and see what you find. And so I'm used to this feeling of being drawn more in a certain direction than another direction. And I used to think of it psychogeographically, explicitly, where I'm like, oh yeah, the way the city's lined up with my particular psychology, it makes me want to go this way. And I just have this feeling. And, you're walking with someone new. It's nice to just be like, all right, well, which way? Someone has a feeling about which way to go. So I just start getting that feeling. And for a little bit more context, I converted to Catholicism on Easter, and I've been having really increasingly intense religious experiences almost every day. And I used to, when I would hear people say things like, there's this YouTuber I like who's new to YouTubing. His name's Ryan Mack, M-A-K with a K. And he talks about his experiences with prayer and renewing his mind and healing from addictions and sicknesses or mental problems. And he and other people sometimes just will really casually talk about God telling them to do things or asking God things and getting these clear enough responses. And I love Ryan Mack's videos, and I think they're really, really useful for breaking bad habits and healing from trauma. And I think he's doing really amazing work. And yet, even when he would sometimes talk about just so casually, like, oh yeah, and I ask God and God tells me to do this, I would cringe. I'd be kind of like, I don't really know what you mean, or maybe I just don't like how you're saying it. However, lately, especially ever since I went on a retreat with some other people who were trying to discern their vocation, discern what their life was really going to be about. And ever since then, I now am starting to actually feel that a lot more clearly. And I guess the way I would describe it for people who might cringe at me saying that is, we all have this voice in our conscience. We all have this sense of what's right and wrong. So when we're presented with certain options, we can, and it can be a quiet voice, especially in our cultural situation. That voice is really drowned out by the noise and speed of everything else. But most people, I think, are familiar with that concept in their own experience, where you just have this feeling like, I shouldn't gossip about this to this person, or like someone tells you something about someone else and you're there and you're like, I could tell this person what happened. And it's not so obviously going to be a bad thing, but you're like, I have a feeling that I shouldn't. And maybe you do it, maybe you don't. And maybe the feeling was accurate, maybe the feeling wasn't accurate. But basically there's that voice. And I think the way I would describe God talking to me in that sense is just an increased amplification of that voice, as if I'm better tuned into the frequency. I think that's maybe even a metaphor Ryan Mack uses, but like I'm tuning in gradually, moving from radio station to radio station. I'm starting to hear this other one much more clearly, but it's been there the whole time. And so I just start seeing it in everything, and I start hearing it in all situations surrounding all sorts of choices. And it's not like OCD style compulsive, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or oh, I need to go do this, or anything. It's not obsessive. It's just present. And it's not about literally everything. It's just present at all times, because like all I have is the present. Like this is the fullness of my life. So in any moment, if God is a benevolent God, which I believe he is, there's going to be something for me to learn how to move forward from that moment in a positive way. And it's not to ignore my whole past or anything. It's just to, in a way, it involves listening to your whole past. It involves understanding your own identity and understanding all the things that shaped you, all the people that surround you, all the things that surround you, all the opportunities you have, or all the where you are in the world, all these sorts of things. So increasingly, I feel that. So to go back to the story, listless at my car, decide to go for a walk just to clear my mind. But then I just am kind of drawn to a particular place in a particular direction. And then I think I'm kind of drawn to the train station. And I used to ride that train actually when I was like 18 to 20, especially. And I haven't ridden it in a long time. It goes to Boston. And so I just feel kind of drawn over there, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm supposed to pray at the train station. And I'm on one side, but I just feel like I'm supposed to be on the other side. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. I used to wait on the other side. I wouldn't wait on this side. So basically, I keep having these feelings, and I keep rationalizing why I'm having them. I keep trying to predict what I'm being led into and why I'm being led into it. And that's kind of a major lesson I learned over this day, is that I think God is trying to strip me of those sorts of anxieties where I try to plan things in advance or control things in advance or know the purpose of something in advance, and instead just be open to what might happen. Because over the course of the day, I'm definitely not going to get into all the examples, but there were endless examples of me thinking I was going somewhere for some reason, and I don't even wind up there because really I was just supposed to walk 4 more feet to see where I was supposed to actually go. So there's all these little, like, maybe you see I don't, this is a contrived example. I don't think this actually happened, but maybe you see a church in the distance and you're like, oh, I should go walk to the church, or I have this feeling I should go walk to the church. But then you head toward it 1 block, and then there's something waiting for you right there, or a person waiting for you right there that you have to interact with or be kind to, or whatever it is. So, but basically it's, you don't necessarily even wind up at that church. So don't even predict what is going to happen. And obviously, I mean, like, this show is all about strategic thinking and future planning. I don't think this is contradictory to say don't try to think about those things. They're very different levels. Like, I'm living my life in a way that I think has this strategic overarching purpose, but I'm also in the day-to-day trying to listen to what God has for me for that day. Because if I try to plan it myself without him, it does not work all that well. So it's certainly not the most efficient or the most good or the highest good. So anyway, I wind up on the other side of the tracks, and I don't know, it's hot out and I don't have anything to, I'm just like, maybe I'm supposed to pray here, or like when I'm stuck, I just wind up trying to pray, and it's not always easy to pray. So I'm just kind of there, and I'm like, I feel totally stuck basically. And I just, it kind of feels like I'm back at my car, but I'm not at my car. And now I feel at least a little bit more aware that I'm supposed to be listening to something. But anyway, people start showing up. It's an outdoor platform. They start showing up to get on the train. And I'm like, and it does not hit me right away, but then I'm like, oh, I'm like supposed to get on this train. And I really don't want to get on the train because that's not what I was expecting to do. I thought I was going to take a walk around the block and then get in my car. All my stuff's in my car, my like journals that are very important to me, like the most recent journal I've been writing in, it's in the car. And I just always have this kind of attachment to things like that. It's like, oh, I would double check that I locked my car, but I thought I was just going around the block. So I'm sure I locked it, but I didn't double check. And I left my backpack in there, and there's no computer in there or anything, but maybe someone's going to think there's a computer in there and break in. So I don't know. So I'm basically like, I don't want to get on this train, but it's so abundantly clear to me in my heart that I'm supposed to get on the train. So, and I don't even have like I'll carry a dead or a disconnected smartphone around with me to use as a GPS, and I don't have that. So I just have my flip phone, and I happen to have some cash in my wallet. And so I'm like, okay, I'll ask someone if I'm supposed to, or like I'll ask someone what the train schedule is, so that I can at least see if I'm able to get back in time, because there's a church group I was going to go to at night that I just heard about that morning at Mass. So anyway, I ask, and I write down one time in my notebook, because I'm like, okay, if I get on this train at this time, I can come back. So I'm like, all right, like, I guess I'm just going to get on this train. And so I get on the train, and as the train is pulling away, I feel like my realities are kind of being pulled apart. Like, I feel like I'm actually being stripped of this problem that I have, where I'm a little too, what's the word? Like, in a way, it's like a type of fear where I'm afraid that, like, I don't want someone to steal the backpack, or I don't want someone to ticket my car, or I don't want, or I want to plan my day in advance even, which I don't really do that at all, and I never have, but part of me still wants to decide beforehand, whereas this felt like a decision was being made for me, and I had no idea what was going to happen for the next 3 hours, because then I would be, I didn't even know if I would be in Boston for the next 3 hours, because I was going to be open to listening to which stop I was supposed to get off at. Like, I didn't know where I was going. So being in that situation and sitting in that seat on the train, when the train started moving, it really felt like I was actually having that type of anxiety that plagues me in various ways. like ripped off of me. Like it was staying where I was before the train moved, and then as the train moves, it's like I'm being liberated from it. And if I had to summarize the day, it was all more minor versions of that. But that was the most major decision I made that day, and it was the most intense and definitive decision. So that had the most intense feeling of trusting in God and not trusting in what I wanted to prepare for myself that day. Instead, I had this point of trust. And in that, I stripped myself from my attachment to worldly things, in a sense. My worldly things such as my decisions about what I was going to do that day. Instead, once that train started moving, that's like, okay, I know the next 3 hours are like for God. And I'm not completely sold on that in a way at the time, because I'm like, okay, well, I know a bunch of people in Boston. Maybe I should call the people in Boston. Maybe I should go to this stop that I'm familiar with, or this stop that I'm familiar with, South Station, Back Bay. But I just have this feeling every time I think of South Station or Back Bay that I'm not supposed to go there. And maybe that's because I am so familiar. So I'm sort of starting to control the situation again. I'm starting to be like, okay, well, I'll go here. I know how to get there from there. I think about places I might run into a friend. And I just try praying on the train, and it's, oh man, what's the, there's a quote from the Bible about this. I think it's from St. Paul he's writing a letter to Christians, kind of preparing them for future persecution. And he's saying, don't even worry about what you're going to say. Like when you're brought before the judge, like it's just going to come to you. It's going to be like, don't worry, just trust in God and you'll be fine. And that is a more intense but similar version of what I was experiencing. And it's like, I just got on the train and I'm already thinking about where am I going to get off the train? Whereas it's like, I have a minute to chill. It's not like down the road. And well, it is down the track, but it's not super close. So yeah. So anyway, without going into all these details, I will cut more to the chase. But there were things about interacting with people and not judging people and being kind to people who were strangers. And there were things about going out on a limb and trying to reach out to places. Or there was, at one point, I wound up at a church that seemed kind of abandoned, but there was a car out back, and I just had a feeling I was supposed to be there. And because I have no idea what to do. Like, I get to Boston and I just have like no idea what to do. So, and I'm not going to try to decide. I'm not going to try to rationally decide what to do. And yeah, so I wind up somewhere and I'm like, okay, well, normally the door's locked. I would normally leave, but I'm here and I feel like I'm supposed to overcome this anxiety I have about maybe interacting with people or knocking on doors or something like that. Not that that's like a phobia I have or anything like that, but I'm literally, of course there's going to be some element of anxiety because it's like someone opens the door and I'm like, what am I supposed to say that I feel like God brought me here? And it's a church, so that's a more reasonable place to say something like that, but it's still not something I felt prepared to say. But anyway, so I do knock and I ring a doorbell and I ring another doorbell, and one of them definitely works because it was extremely loud. It's like a buzzer. And I wait and nobody comes. So that's another example of that, thinking in advance about what's going to happen and starting to prepare for it when it's actually irrelevant. And instead, I'm just there because I'm supposed to strip myself of a further anxiety about knocking on a door or about interacting with a total stranger that I can't even see. And the lesson is that I just have to trust in that scenario. Or I think of, is it Moses who was told to pick up the snake? And there's just like this level of trust that is able to heal us of these things that we don't realize how much they actually pester us. These things like intense anxieties. And yeah, so I'll get to the like two major major things that happened this day, and that wraps it around to the Dérive thing. So I have this day where I spend a few hours doing that, and it's not until the end that I'm like, because I haven't really thought. I think about Guy Debord a lot, but I haven't thought about the Dérive thing in a long time. And then I'm just like, wow, God just took and is still taking me on a Dérive. And I suddenly had this like very emotional connection to myself as an 18 and 19-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever, whenever I was really thinking about this stuff. And it was just so nice. It felt like a lot of the world and its anxieties were washed away, and I saw myself for who I am and how connected I am to earlier versions of myself. So I'm 29, that's about 10 years ago. And it was just a very beautiful moment. I forget if I was praying or if I was just walking or both, but there was this feeling where it's like, okay, so not only is God taking me on this walk to free me from certain anxieties, strip these anxieties from my brain, and show me that he can do that if I let him. Not only that, but he's showing me something about who I am and about these parts of ourselves that we can forget about. Because, I mean, if you're my age, I mean, even if you're 18 and you've gone through middle school and high school and all that stuff, you can really think back on the different people that you've been and the different things that were important to you and the different relationships that emotionally affected you for better or worse. And you can put yourself back in that mind frame. And it was not nostalgic at all. It really did not feel nostalgic. It instead felt like just seeing myself for who I am and seeing all these different parts of my life that I don't think about that much. So there was this removing of wounds and also just like a washing of the mind in this healing fluid of my actual identity, my actual being, not in a way that I would condescend or that I would think little of, but more akin to the way that I think God sees us, where he sees all these good things about us from all of our periods of our lives, and even in periods where we're really enslaved in sin, he's always trying to help us. And so even in those periods, there are good things to recall. And oh, sorry, just see you later. So I was saying, even in those periods, there are always good things to recall. And so it felt like this washing that was going away with this surgery that was happening. And so that was one major wraparound. And the other thing I would say about that conceptually is, and of course there were things on that walk that I felt like I was supposed to do that I didn't do also. So, and that taught me a lesson about the way God sees us as well, because he doesn't, like, there are just punishments, so to speak. Like if we act immorally, there's not to use the word karma, but there is a sort of karma that God has in this world for us. And we're meant to order ourselves to goodness, order ourselves to love, order ourselves to God. Like those are three identical things in a way. Like God is love. So there's and sometimes like I would feel like maybe I was supposed to go talk to a homeless person, and I'd be like, I just don't want to talk to this one. And I keep walking. And it's not like, the whole walk gets really like dark and cursed from there on. It's just like, okay, well, you didn't. And maybe next time you will. You can't do a total 180 on this stuff in a day. Like in healing all of these wounds and trusting entirely in God in a day. You have to learn and grow. And the lesson that I'm getting at here is that in that learning and growing, God does not abandon us at any point. He just continues to furnish our lives with everything we need to come back to him and to be kind to our neighbors and our brothers and sisters. both human and animal and plant and material. Like, this whole creation is really, we're created inextricably with it. We're meant to steward the earth, and we're meant to be kind to fellow humans. So anyway, that is kind of relevant. That might be relevant to anyone who is, I mean, even just being stuck with doom scrolling or things like that, or stuck with monotony in your life. There's something about not planning. Like, this whole experience took, I don't know, maybe 5 hours. And like, if I could spend 5 hours every day like that, why wouldn't I? Like, it was just a continuous experience of good feelings, basically. And there were bad feelings, but they were always overcome into greater, better feelings. Like, those bad feelings were being stripped away. So you have to feel the anxiety to identify that you have anxiety about a certain thing, and then to heal from it. So anyway, I think there's something about that spontaneity and about that setting time aside to listen. And maybe you just wind up in prayer for that whole period of time. But I don't know, there's something about going out in the world and just seeing what God has for you. Because, you know, if you put yourself out in the world in a different scenario than you were expecting to be in, or even just, I mean, you can plan it. You can just be like, all right, this weekend I'm going to go to this place where I don't usually go, and I'm just going to see what's there. I'm going to see what God has for me in the universe. This whole universe is constructed in a way where at every point we can be guided back to this ultimate love for ourselves and for others. And it's a very healing experience. And luckily, no matter what situation we're in, there are ways to move through it. However, you know, we have this responsibility to each other. So when we see people suffering, we're supposed to be that sign for them. We're supposed to help them, because without us helping them, we're just choosing to further that world of sin around us. By ignoring that homeless person, you're just supporting this architecture that allegedly we hate so much, this inhuman so-called capitalist whatever thing. So I'll wrap this around to one more thing here, because I haven't told my uncle about this, and this part of the story is relevant to him. But anyway, just, I'm skimming over a lot, but basically there were lots of coincidences in this whole period. There were lots of things tied to my life in the past and my life now, things I think about, things I need to free myself from. There was just so much coinciding. And then later I went to that church group, and so much coincided there as well, through coincidences. The people I've mentioned, meeting by chance, just through an active act of kindness where I just wanted to say hello, even though really I wanted to leave. I didn't want to say hi to a stranger. You know, we all wound up there together, and interesting things transpired. So yeah, so anyway, I was there, and then I'm driving home, and I'm like, I'm going to listen to Paranoid from that Black Sabbath CD. And I really don't listen to music very much anymore. Well, I love music, but I don't listen to it much in the car, and I don't listen to it much elsewhere. And I play music. I'm playing a show tonight. But there's just, you know, I'm in a period of silence, I guess. And yet I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this. This seems fitting given all the coincidences that happened here today. So I'm gonna pull up real quick the lyrics to this song, because I don't remember all of them. But it really, I had like a crazy religious experience listening to Paranoid by Black Sabbath, basically, because in the way that on my walk I was experiencing, you know, this connection to myself when I was 18. I found in listening to this song this connection to myself when I was 13, probably, when I was into Black Sabbath, or I mean maybe even 12, 11, I don't know, just at some point in middle school when I would listen to this music. So was, yeah, so as I've talked about on the show, I had like intense periods of depression and dissociation and anxiety, and I was suicidal at times. And I've mentioned on the show that the source of a lot of that was I thought my brain was broken. So I associated depression with sadness. I didn't really know what anxiety was clinically. And I just thought like my brain was broken. I thought I was a crazy person because I couldn't think straight, and I was having so much like negativity flood my life and like chaos flood it. So I thought I just had some cognitive issue. And later I eventually learned that that more or less is what depression is. It's a type of madness. It really can take over your cognitive faculties and make the world into a horrible place. Anxiety can as well. They really are interlinked. And so listening to this song, I was just like, this song is crazy, because he's talking about, how miserable he is in a certain sense, but he's just like, he's like, he even refers to his brain specifically. Like, I thought I had a neurological problem. You can talk about emotions and everything like that, but there's can you help me occupy my brain? And it felt a lot like the Psalms, actually, when I was listening to it, because there are these lines like just like screaming out, can you help me occupy my brain? That's like screaming out to God to take you under his wing and to fill your life again. And so I'll just read these lyrics. But finished with my woman because she couldn't help me with my mind. People think I'm insane because I'm frowning all the time. That's like, I've had relationships fail because I was depressed, so that relates to me. And also, when I was a kid, I feel like I was frowning all the time, and people would always comment on it, but that doesn't, I just felt kind of detached in a way. I was depressed at a pretty young age. And all day long I think of things, but nothing seems to satisfy. I think I'll lose my mind if I don't find something to pacify. I always thought it was pass it by, but, Can you help me occupy my brain? I need someone to show me the things in life that I can't find. I can't see the things that make true happiness. I must be blind. And that just, like, I was really hearing this in a religious context, obviously because of all of my experiences, but it was again just this intense feeling of reflecting over my whole life, where it's like this started in middle school, or it felt rooted in middle school, and it turned into such like insanity in my 20s in terms of how bad I actually felt and how disconnected I actually was from the world and from reality. Well, yeah, I guess I could say that. I mean, I feel like I wasn't like, in a way, I was level-headed in terms of my perspectives a lot of the time, but it was just like depression was just like turning my mind into chaos. So it's not like I became really psychotic or anything like that. It's just more like I think life is good at this point, and there was like an immense negativity at times, and yet I always was trying to strive against it. I really loved writers like Debord and these people who wanted to reclaim life. Like I could see external circumstances for why I felt so bad in a way, but I thought there was also this internal core of something being wrong with me that was just getting exacerbated by how bad our culture was and how hateful our culture was. So anyway, yeah, and also the song ends with and so as you hear these words telling you now of my state, I tell you to enjoy life. I wish I could, but it's too late. And this was really interesting to me because I record music in a way that is old school. Like, I'm not the engineer, but we record onto tape. And there's something very 70s and 80s about where we record. And it's not, it's not like a big fancy studio. It's just kind of a friend's wonderful little place packed with equipment in various states of repair. And so when I hear that, and Ozzy Osbourne's actually dead now, I just had this really like beautiful moment of like, I think music has immense healing potential for us, and music is recorded by machines. Like, most of the music oh, I don't know, most of the music recorded, although there's like a huge bubble of digital music at this point, but like so much music was recorded on literal tape, like just on tape using electromagnetic principles to embed sound waves on it. And that's like you, when Ozzy's singing, that's his voice and his breath really leaving a mark in the physical world. It's one to one. It just transfers. I don't mean one to one in terms of fidelity, but in terms of, verbal output, transducer microphone, and then imprint the electric signal transduced again into physical material. And so, especially when I heard that line, like I tell you to enjoy life, I wish I could, but it's too late, from this person who's dead, and this was recorded in 1970, I just had this really like beautiful psychedelic experience of the power of music and recorded music. And yeah, so it was cool. I don't know. I just had a really weird day. So not to be like a story time YouTuber, but I feel like if I didn't get this out of the way now by telling it, I wouldn't ever tell it. And I just don't know who needs to hear something like this. I mean, I would want to tell this story to at least a few of my friends who watch the show. So it might not be that interesting, but it is, it's relevant. I know it's relevant to a few people. So anyway, I guess to pull it all around to the title, now that I've rambled, yeah. This theory of a Catholic derive. The original essay is called Theory of the Derive. That's why I called the title this. Theory of a Catholic derive is, well, it's never just us out in the world with the city and the weather and our psychology. And so to do psychogeography is, I mean, I've always thought it was a waste of time, except maybe right in the beginning when I found it, because it just seemed like fun. But the people who are like got into that, I don't know. It's fine. But basically, I have this perspective now where it's like, it's never just us in the city, in the circumstances of the city, with whatever people might be in that city. It's never just that. There's also this calling that we all have to holiness and to pulling ourselves away from the morals and principles of this world and trying to build better, like, habitual virtue in ourselves. And so for us to be placed in a city and be listening to our experiences in that city, that is an experiment in cultivation of virtue. And I don't want to make it sound ascetic, because it's not ascetic. I was walking around all day looking at beautiful buildings and people and, plants. Actually, there were some crazy plants I saw. So there's, it's not an ascetic activity. However, there is this, like, we're in a war. We're in like a psychological war. We're in a literal war with Iran. Again, not that it really ever ended. And there's I think life is serious. I think we have to take it pretty seriously. And that doesn't mean you can't have any fun, but it does mean, like, just fuck everything about what the current culture is going to get you to do. And I'll make this important connection here, which is what I was doing on that day essentially was listening to signs. And those signs were present to me, but they were also signs in my life. They were things I was thinking about in my past, or these connections. Like, if I didn't have that past connection to, even if I had the Black Sabbath CD in my car, if I hadn't seen my uncle that morning, I probably wouldn't have listened to it. If I hadn't found the CD that day, I probably wouldn't have listened to it. So there's things, there are signs within my own identity as a person that play into this. And our culture advertising techniques play on abuse of signs. It's like, at the most fundamental level, you can hang a sign out there to give someone an idea. You can put up a billboard so that they remember your lawyer firm name when they actually get in a car accident. There's this massive, massive abuse of signs. And it's such a, I also bought an XTC CD there, and I was just inclined to say it's such a complicated game for any XTC fans. But there's this direction, we're always being pulled in these directions by all sorts of actors in this world now that we have images that can be just shot into our brains through algorithms that we have no control over nor transparency with respect to. We don't get to know how they work. We don't get to read the code. So, or even see the, yeah. We don't even really get to see our own data a lot of the times, and or the data that they have on us. And so in this world where signs are being abused, and they're being abused to such an extent that most people know that, like most people, I mean, I don't know about most people, but like a lot of people realize that like advertising's manipulating them, and the video ads they play on the subway are manipulating them, commercials are manipulating them. However, there's a flip side to that that does not get brought home, which is not only are those things manipulating you, but because they are fake, because they are nefarious, and because you at best might just numb yourself to them, because we can't detach ourselves from advertising. We're just going to be exposed to it at all times. There is this other side of the sword, which is it severs us from our actual divine connection to what signs mean in the universe, to what meaning is in the universe, to what ultimate meaning of life is, to what our lives ought to be oriented toward. And so we get inundated with grotesque, overt signage. And in that process of getting adjusted to that world of signs, that world of influence, which affects political influence, affects everything, when we get adjusted to that world, we get desensitized to the real life that we're supposed to be living, the real world, the fullness of this real world, which is that you can go out there and just actually strip yourself of your pains and heal from them in this world. If you put yourself in a situation where you're willing to trust in what God is wanting you to do, and if you're willing to listen to God. And this is it's not a super long process, but it takes practice. Like anything, it takes practice. You need a firm disposition. You need to develop a firm disposition through chosen actions every day, or, at least persistently over the course of some time in your life. So that's my theory of the Catholic Dérive, basically, is that I think it's worthwhile to put yourself out in the world in situations and listen to God. And God speaks to us through the whole universe. That's the beauty. That's the true beauty and complexity. It's an unbelievable level of complexity, because you can think the universe is so complex to begin with. I mean, we've got like chemical and physical sciences demonstrate a lot of that. Neurochemical sciences, that's like pretty unbelievable. But then the fact that it's also in the architecture of this universe is that everything is there for you at all times in this true way, akin to that passage in the Sermon on the Mount where it's like the birds don't worry about their food, they're going to get their food. How much more important are we to God as rational beings? Like, I believe birds have souls, but they don't have spirits, so to speak. They aren't really they aren't rational. They're running off of feelings and instincts and perceptions, whereas we have this added reflexive capacity. So anyway, be careful with the abuse of signs out there in the world. I'm not really looking forward to going to New York and getting inundated with signs, but, well, maybe I am. Maybe that's a bad attitude. Maybe I'll try to tune out the evil signs, and I look forward to actually tuning into the positive signs as I put myself in these situations. And one little caveat I would add to all of this is, like, especially as someone coming from this sense of Taoism, like I often think in terms of a literal path. But when you're thinking in terms of a literal path, you can start beating yourself up basically every time you stray from the path. But the beauty of this, or there's that saying, God writes straight with crooked lines. It's like there is always straying, and yet the complexity of the universe that I was alluding to earlier is such that even when we stray, there's just always everything we need to return and to go straight again. And so, whatever circumstance you find yourself in, don't shame yourself for past actions or anything. Only feel bad about them to the extent that they really affected the good you could have done in that moment. And, you know, and repent and move forward, but don't get stuck in the past in that way. So one more little thing that I alluded to in there is, when I was describing the lives of people who, for example, like a homeless person who is pretty stuck. Like we have this responsibility to be the signs in their lives. We have this responsibility, if we're financially capable, of getting them some food, giving them some money, giving them a bottle of water, giving them conversation, giving them kindness, asking what they want, asking where they came from, asking if they need anything, and praying with them, whatever it is. So there's akin to that, like that's me thinking about our relationships with strangers, but there is this other sense that is very important, which is, we all are social in our lives, more or less. Like we're all connected to other people. And even if you're just watching this, like you and I are connected in a sense socially. You could send me an email. You could whatever. So we have this responsibility to really seek life with each other right now, because everything is disintegrating. People's lives are disintegrating. Their relationships are disintegrating, and they're becoming very shallow. They're becoming very robotic and inhuman. And we have this responsibility with our friends to take care now to create futures for ourselves where we actually can love and support each other and survive, most fundamentally. So with that, I guess I'll call it a day. And, thanks for watching. Like the video if you want. And I also, if you join the Patreon mailing list, I write these little cards with quotes, and I got some nice cardstocky paper for them. And the two quotes from these last 2 months, there's one from Society of the Spectacle and one from The Physiology of the Employee by Honoré de Balzac. And I don't know. I've never read this Physiology of the Employee book. It was a gift from a friend, but I immediately found some pretty funny quotes, and I put one that I thought was kind of funny on there. So, all right. Well, yeah, like the video, tell your friends, let me know what you think, and yeah, have a nice weekend, everybody. See ya.